not only real estate agents, but just in general, for if you're trying to do anything, I don't think there's 1 foot in, 1 foot out. It's all in. So I'm really excited for you to unpack that. Really, nobody more qualified to talk about being all in than you. And so, what does all in mean? What does it mean to you, Chuck?
Well, first I want to preface it. Everybody doesn't have to be all in, but then don't expect results that you want that you get when you're all in. All in means you are committed. You're committed, you're unwavering, and completely focused, dedicated at creating habits one after another. It's probably a word people throw around that really, really don't understand what all in means.
Right.
And I'd like to unpack that with you today.
Let's do it. And you said the word there that really kind of rang in my ear was committed. And so what does that mean, right? What does committed mean to you?
Well, we all have different personality styles. And once I started to learn that in business, I'm a driver. So is my wife. Committed means, there's no obstacle that's going to stop me. It's just a matter of time whether I find a way around it or I run through it. So here, let's just dive back a little. How I started to understand what all in is and why it made such a difference in my life and my career. So we were broke. My wife and I were broke when we first met in real estate, and I thought I was committed. And I thought I was like, this is what I want. But once I started to understand that my actions never reflected my words, I started to say to myself, man, you're just a liar. Who are you fooling out there? Because, my kids even laugh at me. They love my favorite quote. I always say, talk is cheap. And that's when even self-talk, and that's when it hit me. I go, I wanted a life like this, but at the same time, I was operating without that aligning. And that's why I say to people, I go, you lie to yourself. And only you can tell what all in means. So when I started to go all in, what that meant was I didn't focus on the goal. I didn't focus on the sale. I focused on the process. So I always say embrace the process. There's a process to everything. And a process does not necessarily mean you're going to get results when you do the process right away. It could be a day, it could be a week, it could be months or years. But when you see someone that's already done it, he's used the Roger Bannister thing. When somebody's done it, the process works, but you think there's an easier path. So everybody tries this easier path. So what I used to do with my agents who would be thinking they're working hard, and they say, you know what, Chuck, I need to set up a meeting with you. And you probably would really understand this because you're a coach. And you sit down and all that goes through your head is they're talking. They're talking about how much they're working. In your head, you're like, yeah, whatever. Look, everybody out there, don't think you're fooling anybody when you talk to a coach and want to sell them on what you actually do.
Right.
What I always did is I said, listen, I don't want to hear them. Remember, talk is cheap. Do me a favor. For the next 2 weeks, I want you to do a time study. And what a time study for me is, the moment you wake up, every half an hour, I want you to jot down what you did for the half an hour prior till the moment you go to bed. Now, it is tedious, but if someone wants success, I tell them all the time, you want me to coach you, you want success, you have to do that.
Yeah.
And then I always end up with this, because I'm just a straight shooter and I don't care what people think because I want them to be successful. They go, and I will prove to you how much you don't work. And you want to know something, John? I cannot tell you, and Angela always laughed, how many people do not show up for the next appointment.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And here's the crazy thing. And I believe some of them never even finished a time study. That's how lazy they are. So that's when and I'm sure you coach a lot of people. You hear the same thing, don't you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's busyness versus productiveness. And I love what you said, because all of the external things really don't line up until you can get that internal dialogue dialed in. And something you said, and I would love for you to give some context on ways that has helped you, um, because it's like integrity, right? Do what I
Mhm.
say I'm going to do. Yet we break the promise. We can't even keep the promise we make to ourselves.
Yeah.
So for you, like, how did you overcome that? Right? Like, you catch yourself, you weren't keeping the promise. Like the self awareness, the correction, is it accountability? Like, where does that like switch to where it's like, damn, I can't do that anymore?
Where I can't go down the path I'm going and expect good results. Is that what you're talking
Yeah,
about?
no, well, the the just talk, right? And not keeping the promises that we make
Yeah.
to ourselves. And
Yeah.
and really, we're not lying to others, we're just really lying to ourselves. And
Yeah.
and really,
So
all truth.
that's a great question. I'm blessed. I'm blessed because my wife is my partner. So there's definitely a direct correlation between people who get coached by a good coach. And when I use that term good coach,
Mhm,
there are coaches out there that will tell you what you want to hear
mhm,
just for sake of getting your money every month.
mhm.
Nobody wants to do the difficult things. Nobody wants to hear the negative. I always draw a similarity to churches in this day and age. There are churches that'll tell you what you want to hear, not the biblical concept. Why? Because they want you to keep coming back. They don't want to tell you the hard truth that you need to hear. And it's the same thing with coaches. So when I've noticed, because I am the most uncoachable person probably on this planet, I do not like anybody telling me what to do. I'll just figure it out. But here's what
Yeah,
I notice: by nature, but I'm going to just blanket it and say every human being is lazy by nature. They want
100%.
the results without putting in the hard work.
Correct.
So what a coach brings to the table, it's the accountability. It's the calling of the bullshit. It's not necessarily knowing every detail you need or every nuance to make you successful. It really is the accountability part. Just like in the gym. Yes, you want a good trainer that's going to tell you to do the proper movements so you don't get hurt. But really, ultimately, the most powerful coaches are the ones that make sure you show up
Mhm,
and do the work. So for me, I've been blessed because my coach is my wife,
mhm,
and but I don't look at her as my coach. She's my spouse. She's my best friend. She's my soulmate. So we hold each other accountable. And the last thing I want to be is a lazy ass husband, where my wife goes, "What the hell am I married to?"
mhm.
So I'm held accountable by love, and I want to make sure she knows I'm the man of the household. So I'm blessed in that way because probably without her, I don't know if I'd be where I'm at.